like you lost another one.
And thank you for joining us for Conversations with Tech. Well, this is part 2 of mental and emotional health. We don't know who's going to join us tonight or if anybody else is going to join us tonight, but we're going to continue to get into it and we welcome all of your questions, comments, concerns, all of the above. Even though this time around I'm not going over to Twitter because you have to scare me. I am hard from last week, and I'm still questioning whether or not to even answer.
Sorry, you cut out it. You cut out there for a little bit. Just saying.
Well, it sounded like there was a drill in the background. What is going on over
I had
there?
my massage. My muscles a bit sore.
My brain went somewhere else. George, Jesus,
Wow.
Jesus, fix me, fix me, fix me, Jesus.
I'm not gonna even go there.
Ancestors. I do know one thing. People have been telling me all week that there is like a super toxic man running all over the TikTok, trying to say what an alpha man is and what a beta man is. Here's my question, because honestly, men who handle their business that I know, I've never heard them use those terms.
Because they don't.
Is that even okay?
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to him and any other person who uses that particular term. I'm sorry. That's not. I don't have to announce myself to you when I'm in a room. If you don't notice me, that's your own fault, not mine.
Okay, see, that's what I was thinking, because I know I'm not a man, but my experience, there have been times where a man has come in a room and I haven't even been looking at the door, the entryway, or nothing, but I feel a shift in the presence, if I'm explaining that correctly.
No, you're right.
That's what makes me look up, because I feel a shift. But how does that affect the rest of you when a man comes out with that, hear me roar, I'm an alpha? Because I know as women, if a woman comes out with that pick me vibes, there's a period of time that the rest of us get some backlash. I don't know if men experience that.
That's all I got to say.
Okay, all right. Well, ladies, take notes. Take notes.
And I'm not holding myself up to be a paragon of anything. I'm just like, if you have to announce your presence when you come into a room, then what's the point? Again, the person who's going to notice you is going to notice you. And if you exude anything out to be noticed, it's gonna get noticed, point blank. If I walk into a room and here's the difference. Here's I'll explain it the best way I know how. If I walk into a room and I'm confident about myself, the way I look, the way I feel, and everything else, that's gonna send out pulses regardless. And people are like, oh, they're gonna take a look. They're gonna notice that. But if I'm sitting here saying, I'm an alpha male, it doesn't. It's not the same thing.
True.
There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance is what the alpha beta shenanigans is going about. And I try to keep myself out of that argument because I don't have time to sit there and explain. I try my best to keep my confidence level up. And yes, will you get your confidence level knocked? It happens all the time. And you gotta have a thick skin and you gotta have a thick wall to let you know, I just gotta keep climbing. And that's just what it's gonna have to be.
Branching off from that, I know that, and you even alluded to that. Every human being on the planet has high days when it comes to their self esteem and how they view their self worth, and low days. But as a man, how do you deal with the low days?
Unfortunately, we've been told to slug on and move past it. That's how society has groomed us. Low days are not supposed to exist in our universe. I if I'm breaking the fourth wall here, fellas, I'm sorry, but we all know it's the truth.
So when you have all of that pent up inside, what's your release? Because every human has to have a release. That's basic human nature. And if society is telling you you can't go and talk to this person or you can't react this way, it's gonna build up. What happens when it builds up so much you can no longer hold it inside? What happens?
Well, for the most part, you'll get the ones who do the outburst when the pressure has grown too much. You'll get the ones who try to overwork out because that's the only way to release it. You'll get the ones who will just keep bottling it and then until they just, well, for a lack of a better word, you know what to themselves. And that's the only three categories we got. I mean, not even I can't even put video games on that because that's not even a whole
No, it's not,
release
because
valve.
I was made aware today that there was an up and coming TikTok creator that unfortunately was unalived by his partner because of a disagreement regarding video games. And it really made me think after last week's conversation, was this possibly, and people, I am not making excuses for anyone. I am just explaining to you all that I am learning from conversations that I'm having with people. So there are times where I take a pause and ask myself some certain questions, thinking that I can better understand the situation. I am not making excuses for anyone. Let me prerequisite this. But I started wondering, like, was there something going on with this man's partners that he didn't release? And when he finally blew up, everything blew up in that moment.
I mean, I can't speak to this person's state of mind. I don't know. And we won't know until further things about the case are released. I can only speak to the fact that I'm not gonna say that we haven't evolved as human beings to realize that con- I mean, okay, I'll put it in this simple terms. I'm hoping and I'm guessing people have seen Encanto by now. If you haven't, go watch it. It's a very good movie. And it speaks
It is.
about underlying pressure that a person or persons can put on other people that they may not even realize. And there's one character, I think her name is Luisa, and she's touted as the strongest character in this movie. And she's just
Mhm.
like, sometimes it's just too much, but I can't show that weakness, which again stood in for a lot of men for that character because that's basically what we have to deal with on a regular basis. We are not allowed to show the cracks. We're not allowed to show to we're made to feel that we have to be useful in order to feel valued, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I know you saw the live that I had with a friend of mine last night on Instagram before I came over here for last night's show.
I
And
caught a tail end of it.
we have been friends for a very, very long time. And no, I am not taking anything away from black men. But in our conversation last night, I realized something that I don't think a lot of women, especially women of color, realize. Because we're quick to say that black men, especially, are coddled. But here's the one commonality that we have, and you just brought it up. We're looked at as if we're not supposed to have any days off, that nothing is supposed to affect us. Sickness, hardship, mental health issues, emotional issues, nothing. We're just supposed to push through. And when I was talking to her last night on the live, I had a good friend from high school who was a fireman pass away. It was extremely hot during his funeral, and they had like little annexes for people who couldn't fit into this church. I was in one of the annexes, and thank God that a good friend of mine was also in this particular annex with me because I got so overheated. And I remember her telling me, like, oh, go step outside. I didn't know she was right behind me. I literally took 2 steps outside, but I was so overheated, I collapsed. Thank God it was a fireman's funeral. So there were paramedics, EMT, firemen, Johnny on the spot to come and help me. I had a concussion so severe. You know, a little checklist that they give you. If this happens, come back to the hospital.
Hmm.
My mother was sitting there and watched me experience all those things on the list and never took me back to the hospital. You want to know the one thing she was worried about? Me doing the dishes that was in my sink. Now, I had a broken ankle and bruised ribs because of my fall. And she kept telling me, like, oh, you can't do this. And in her mind, you couldn't take a day off until you had grandchildren. Then it was okay to take a nap, to take a sick day. So I'm like, what if I never have grandchildren? And I realized as a whole, that is how society looks at every man. And also, men are left out of a lot of conversations. Like another conversation I had the other day, they were talking about some children being rescued from a pool. The person who brought it to my attention was like, the mother should be ashamed. And I was like, you do realize children have more than just a mother. Like in this interview you just showed me, there was a grieving father there that was happy that his children were saved. They were supposed to be sitting on the back porch. Kids are going to be kids. Kids snuck off. The parents checked on them, came back 2 minutes later. The kids are gone. They're scrambling around looking. But the father was just as traumatized, and nobody brought him up at all. Nobody said, oh my God, prayers for this man. Nobody condemned him. They just left him out of the picture. And I've also noticed since the last conversation, I have been more observant in real life conversations, social media conversations, everything. That even as siblings, a lot of times the brothers are not acknowledged for their accomplishments. It's like a big deal if a woman in the family does something, but a man could be the first in the family, and it's kind of like, yeah, we expect it. Am I off basis in this?
No, you're not off base. You're not. Like I said, for the most part, we. How can I put this so that people can understand? Um, it's a fine line we have to walk. I'm not saying women don't have to walk a fine line. Y'all do, and your tightrope is a lot harder and a lot more crazy. But we have to walk one too, and it makes it Like it's just crazy. I mean, that's the best way I can.
Because I don't know, I don't know what other people who watched the show, whether live or through the course of last week, learned.
I need to eat my food.
But let me explain
I'm not hungry. Seriously,
what I learned.
not kidding.
I learned that number one, we need to start treating men as human beings and stop treating men as workhorses, farm animals, if you will. Because we talk about reducing women to just incubators, but there are a lot of times that men that I am, and I apologize sincerely, but I am just now noticing that a lot of times men are just fetishized and looked at as quote unquote breeders. There are far too many times that we equate emotions and emotional maturity with femininity, but when a woman shows it, she's too emotional and she's not supposed to do that. But then women want a man that has emotional maturity so that they can have a fruitful relationship. But then you get mad when the man shows emotion. I thought women went through a lot of contradictions until that initial conversation last week. And I realized the amount of contradictions that men have to endure. I I don't, and I'm talking about good, decent men. I'm not talking about the incels. I'm not talking about the rapists. I'm not talking about the pedos. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the good men that are out here trying to do the right thing, being respectful of people, just living their life, working their work, doing their thing.
All right, so this is for the black community.
At this point, I'm like, how do you know which side is up?
Um, it's kind of hard to explain, and I wish the other fellows were here so we could get more pointed with it because they. I mean, everybody was at a different age or stage in their life, which gives them more life experience than me. But when I see, um, I'll say this for myself: when I have people who have constantly looked at me to do this, that, or the third, and for me not to make any complaints or to say this or to say that or to say, oh, well, SpaghettiOs there, and you're not looked at as a human being half the time. And, when you finally get that emotional break or release in this case, and sometimes, like I said, it can come out in any of the three ways I mentioned. You hope, you pray for the first one or the second. The first one, you pray that it doesn't get physical, but at least you pray for the emotional burst that you can just let it out and you're allowed to, and in a space where you're not going to be judged or criticized. But that rarely ever happens because most of the time when you're at your emotional breaking point, it's generally in a place where you don't want the emotional breaking point to be broken. Um, And when you do the second, that gets out your anger, your frustration, and it gets out for the most part. You're allowed to physically decompress, not so much mentally there. And so you're trying to process. And that's the thing. And for men, we're trying to figure we try to figure out how's the best way to attack the problem instead of think about the problem. We'll attack it and we'll just like we have to get rid of it. It doesn't exist. It should not. We shouldn't be going through this shouldn't be happening. So we'll think of ways to attack the problem instead of think about it logically of how to get rid of this emotional distress that we're in, because we don't know how to handle it. We're just honestly not capable most of the time to handle it, because we're not given those tools at a young age to say, this is how you emotionally process this. This is how you emotionally process that. We're literally told at a young age that any show of emotion, unless it's happy or complete and utter anger, every other emotion is completely useless.
And yet, the vast majority of men are encouraged to date women who they are raised to believe are emotional creatures, but then they can't connect on an emotional level because they've been emotionally stifled from birth. So, how do they expect heterosexual, cross gendered relationships to work? Because if somebody says, hey, I know this is not going to work on an emotional level, I know that we're not going to be able to comprehend each other, let's just make this transactional, they're condemned. But it seems like we are set up strictly for transactional cross gendered relationships.
I will agree to that, because to a certain extent, because you do have the outliers there. You do have the quote unquote unicorns in both sexes, where they're just like, hey, we need to discuss this and we need to figure out the best way to discuss this without either of us going into extreme left field or extreme right field. We just need to meet somewhere in the middle, because at the end of the day, I love you, you love me, but we need to figure out how we're going to exist, because there are certain things that aggravate me and there are certain things that aggravate you, and unless we talk about it, we're not going to get through it. So you do have those unicorns, but they are far and in between. We got some horses masking as unicorns, but
Yeah.
for the most part, there we both have to be able to agree that anything that we discuss or talk about is not going to be used as cannon fodder for later. And I think that's where the emotional communication between men and women breaks down. Because no offense, ladies, and I hate to say this, I do, but if we say something to you and you don't like it, you'll hold on to it. And at a moment where we're both arguing, you'll bring it up and you'll use it as a weapon. And we're just like, well, wait a minute, why, what is that about? And see, then when we get mad about you doing that, then you flip the script and be like, well, you did it, and we're trying our best to hold that in, because we don't want to lose our temper, because we know what will happen
And the
and what will be
crisscross
perceived at.
applesauce, yeah, and the crisscross applesauce of it all, when a man has been truly coddled his entire life, and I don't care if he's in his 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or if he's crossed over into the forbidden zone of the hundreds, okay? When a man has been consistently coddled and made to believe that there is nothing wrong with him, the roles reverse. Because I've experienced this. Where you can say something and you're like, oh, I thought we were just joking around. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be offensive. 67 years later, every time you say, hey, babe, you hurt my feelings, he is going to bring that up. And I'm like, out of all the things that hurt you on a daily basis, out of all the times that you get disrespected as a man, you still stuck on what the hell I said that I apologize for? That I gave you the good gawk gawk 3,000 for because I felt so bad? Go see if Brenda that called the cops on you just for being a man in the store is gonna do the same thing. Cause I'm a mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I I just
And can we stop using the term pick me so loosely? Because when you find a woman or a non binary individual that gets it, that gets that, hey, maybe we should listen to men. Men experience domestic abuse, men experience rape, men don't have an outlet for their mental and emotional health, and maybe we should be a helpmate in this, whether you're a sister, a cousin, an aunt, a mother, a friend, a girlfriend, whatever your category, whatever your title is. Stop calling these women pick me's. Like, would y'all really learn the definitions of these phrases and these words before you use them? Because you're making women feel ashamed for properly backing and supporting men, and finally giving men a safe space to call somebody and go, hey, today I'm not okay. Now you got this woman, this non-binary individual going, maybe I should answer the phone, maybe I should, because now they're feeling self-conscious, like they're doing something wrong and they're not. This isn't somebody a pick me. It's somebody that has to put down everybody else and go, look at me, I'm the best of the best. Someone that's being supportive and going, hey guys, maybe we should listen to him. Maybe we should hear him out. That is not a pick me. Somebody going, hey, I support my best friend that happens to be a man. I enjoy being his cheerleader. That's not a pick me. She has no ill intent. She's not dogging anybody else. She's just saying, hey, maybe support your best friend the way I support my best friend. Because if you're a woman and you can do the happy dance for your female or non binary friends, why can't you do the happy dance and be encouraging for your male best friends? If I'm overstepping, tell me I'm overstepping. Jessica
um
told me I'm overstepping. Let me be calm. It's
no, it's
I
not.
so much, and you know I've never
I
been a
get it.
standoff person, and you
I
know
get it.
that
I get it. I
because
get
there
it.
have been times where you've told me like, you messing with me, and I'm like, do you not realize you just did the damn thing? Where I'm shocked that you don't see what you just did. You know that's just me every day. But honestly, after last week's conversation, I took some notes. I did some self reflecting. I did some checking of myself
Hmm.
because in no way am I perfect. No way. But I strive to be better every day. I do. Some days I succeed, some days I break even, some days I completely fail. That's the honest to God truth. I'm not going to be out here telling y'all that every day I'm just knocking it out the box. No, that's a lie. Okay. There's some days I got to offer apologies from the morning to the evening. Okay. And it's not intentional. But there were some things that were opened up to me. And then you little motherfuckers on Twitter, fuck you. Your mama's a hoe, and so was your daddy. For y'all to sit here and say, because I agreed to have this panel, that I was a pick me. At what point did I put women down? Now, in the last conversation and in this conversation, I held myself accountable and I pointed out mistakes I made. And I offered apologies for my actions to the men that were on the panel, because in them telling me certain things, I realized I misstepped regarding the men that were on the panel. I didn't say I was speaking for every woman. I did not. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I put down another woman while I
Yep.
was holding
You
myself
did.
accountable?
You
You know
did.
what? I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna nail
But
myself to you, and I'm gonna fight you because I can afford a plane ticket, but I don't trust
okay.
the
Hold
Palm
on. Hold
Coast
on.
Guard
Hold
plane.
on. Just hold on. So here's the thing, ladies. No, we're not saying we're here's what the main gist of the conversation was last week. We're not saying that, you know, how can I put this? We're not saying that, you need to constantly make an adjustment. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we should be just as you want to be allowed to be emotional. Give us that same grace. That's all we're asking for, because at the end of the day, we don't need to be popping off at you because of the emotional buildup. That's not fair to you as a woman to be on the receiving end of an emotional buildup that we're not willing to let go because we don't feel comfortable enough to be comfortable. Well, we don't feel comfortable enough to just spill our guts because it's constantly, nope, you need to be my rock. You need to be something I can lean on. You need to be something that you need to be this. You need to be that. You need to be this. You need to be that. That's exhausting. And I'm not saying
In
the
the
playing the
reverse,
role. Wait,
women,
hold on. I'm not saying that the role of women, being forced into that nurturing role is not as equally exhausting, because I can tell you my mother is exhausted half of the time. So I get it. But, there's no way for us to emotionally unload without the fear of, again, you using it as ammo in a later conversation. And that's why we don't emotionally unload on you, because we fear that if we do, the fallout, if we have an argument or something, you're going to bring that up and it's going to be used against us as a weapon. And that's why the disconnect is so big, because we're just like, if I'm honest with her, or honestly honest with her, I don't know how that's going to go if we get into a fight.
hmm and in the reverse, women, stop coming home and blowing up at these men. And when I say blow up, y'all know what I mean. But let me paint the picture for everybody else that may not be clear. Don't come home cursing him to hell. Actually, anybody who dates men, don't come home doing that. Calling him everything but what his mama and daddy named him. Don't put your hands on somebody and then just expect them to be cool, calm, and collected, because fight or flight kicks in. It kicks in. And people will forget your gender, your age, everything. Because if you hit me so many times, I don't give a damn if you five. If you are literally trying to take me out, after a while of me going, stop. I'm coming for your jugular. Also, stop putting up memes and stop having man crush Mondays and all that bullshit when you're describing men that you condemn. You want somebody who danced like Chris Brown, but you won't put your son in dance lessons, and you publicly say that that makes a man fruity. You want somebody to be caring and enduring because you're watching Lil Miss Harvey and Michael B. Jordan's relationship. But Michael B. Jordan is in touch with his emotions and obviously got with a woman who allows him to express his emotions. That's why they're working. Y'all didn't catch that? But you want that type of love, but you don't want to give that type of access. You don't want to give that type of understanding.
Here's it plainly. Stop expecting us to be Mr. Darcy. Please. Please. Please, please, please. I don't know how I can say this any plainer.
Oh, I
We
can
are
say it more plainer. If you want a man with no emotion that can take everything on the chin and give you a smile on your face, baby, you're asking to date the reincarnation of Ted Bundy, because he was in a whole relationship where he made that woman think that nothing affected him, that he could take everything on the chin, that it was him as her man against the world, and his outlet was killing bitches.
as sad as that is.
And she is now forever attached to him and his legacy because people refuse to believe that she didn't know anything about it. So if you don't want to give your man the same respect, the same outlet that you require, y'all keep asking what people bring to the table. Are you bringing an
That's
open
mostly
heart?
us.
There's some women that ask that shit. But if you're not willing to bring an open ear, and an open heart and understanding to the table, don't ask for it. Y'all are just gonna have a transactional relationship. You gonna give him some badussy or some pussy, and he gonna give you a wet ass. That's y'all transaction, and go about your way. Sorry, not sorry.
I'm not saying anything.
But y'all, uh, I know tonight's gonna be a short show, but tomorrow will be a full hour show because even though against my better judgment, I said I wasn't gonna answer y'all emails. Y'all ain't shit. Y'all kept sending so many emails. I had to start looking at them and answering them to the point. Y'all done fucked up my whole email. I was supposed to send my students some emails, and I can't even email at this point. So if you didn't get a response, y'all done flooded my damn email. So I can't even email back. I've never experienced this and I work in IT. So we'll be here tomorrow. We'll give you a full hour. We just going an hour. So whatever of those blind reacts that you sent that we do not get to in an hour, I'm not carrying them over to the next week because y'all traumatized me last week. Because I told y'all, hey, I might be by myself. And y'all just went willy nilly crazy with that shit. And I don't trust y'all no more. I thought we had a good relationship. I thought our marriage was solid. But you showed me we had a Bill and Hillary marriage. I thought we was Barack and Michelle. But no, we Bill and Hillary. Fuck you. That's some bullshit. But okay, cause
Final thoughts.
yeah, cause they done fuck and stop trying to get. I don't care how many notifications y'all send me on Twitter. I'm not fucking with y'all for like 2 months. Go ahead. No, don't laugh. You remember last week they was wilding. I'm not.
I
Mm-mm.
know, I know, I know. Thank
And I
God.
still got girlfriends and wives messaging me. Just send me the screenshot. No, no, because he didn't do nothing wrong because I didn't tell him what was said. I didn't even respond to the heifer, but I feel like you will come and stab me where my heart used to be. No, no. I'm in some triangles that I don't even have no benefits from. I was just sitting here trying to get good questions, and bitches took it too far.
Yeah, they tend to do that. But here's my final thoughts. Both sides have to honestly be willing to do inner reflection and to be willing to have a conversation that doesn't result in consequences in a later conversation and or argument.
Ooh, yeah.
That's it. That's all I got for you.
And my final thought is if you motherfuckers want to call me a pick, make sure you can fight. Because I'm not mature. If you saw my last video on Instagram, bitch, I'm not mature. I do a podcast with Star Wars behind me and my gaming headphones behind me. Bitch, I'm not. I got action figures across the room from me. I bought encyclopedias regarding comic books. I have an adult sippy cup, bitch. Don't call me a fucking pick me because I think the way to resolve anything is for me to lay hands on you. And I'm trained in jujitsu, judo, and I have all the weapons to prove it. And I got a gang of shit because I got a gang of brothers. It, there's
All
only
right.
one brother whose ass I haven't been able to beat, and they all got me by like a foot and 200 pounds. Your girl ain't that big, but fuck it. Uh, don't call me a pick me. Just because I'm advocating, as I have always done since I started on social media, for people to be heard and for mental health to be taken seriously across the board, bitch, I'm not a pick me. And I'm petty. You gonna fuck around and see me at the dinner table at Easter as your stepmama on both sides of your family. I'll be married to your mama and your daddy at the same goddamn time. Don't play with me. I got no scruples. Just because my daddy is a pastor does not mean I have morals. He chose to be a pastor. I didn't even choose to be born, bitches. What the fuck? But until tomorrow, as always, each one teach one, each one reach one, and get into it unless it's my business. Bye, y'all.